Kia ora everyone, ina mana, ina waka, ina reo, iro rangatirama, tēnā koutou, tā katoa. Welcome everyone, my name is Kerry Topp and I'm the founder of the Kerry Topp Collective. The Kerry Topp Collective exists to help courageous leaders innovate and collaborate for intergenerational value, impact and relevance. Today, we are here for the 4InSight session. It's about unlocking foresight and insight of digital experts to help accelerate Kiwi business leaders' digital aspirations. And so today, we're here to really get a view from one of our digital thinkers and deliverers. The goal of these sessions is to decompose digital change and present 3 pieces of insight within 10 minutes so you can easily consume that. And we hope, and our goal, is to leave you richer for the 10 minutes that you invest. In terms of the format is about insight talks. As I said, 3 rounds of questions and a wrap up and close within 10 minutes. That's our challenge. So who are we going to hear from today? Well, we're blessed to have Bernard Seeto, who's the head of digital strategy at Southern Cross Health Society. Bernard has a long pedigree in technology and beyond that has worked in IAG and senior leadership roles. Bernard, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Kerry. Great to be here.
Awesome. So, Bernard, when we talked about the kind of the 4InSight session, you said, oh, look, I think digital strategy, I've got this thing called mystery, thriller, and suspense, and it intrigued me. Do you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah. Well, Kerry, when we had that discussion around digital strategy, the challenge I found was that there was no one definition of digital strategy. And with this pandemic, all this type of stuff, it becomes quite a forefront type discussion point because people's behaviors are changing. And the mystery component to it is a lot of people have been talking about digital as just a digital channel. They talk about digitization of a business. They talk the back-end technology, but really it is all those things and is that end-to-end experience that the customer has with the organization and how it becomes codified to data for most organizations. And then it is also a thriller because it's changed the role of technology professionals like myself. It really gives us a great chance now to become rock stars in terms of how we shape our businesses going forward. Yeah. And the last part around suspense is that it is exciting because no one has absolutely nailed it. It gives everybody an opportunity to play on a very equal playing field, which is fantastic.
It is. And look, I'm even more intrigued. So I think we should rip into question 1. When we talked about, well, the network effect of data, which I found really intriguing. And so I guess the question is, what is the network effect of data and how do leaders unlock it? And can you give us an example?
Yeah, if we could go to the first slide, Kerry, what this is showing is that most companies will have a business strategy. And at some point, through all the technology, you will fundamentally codify that business strategy into data. And that data will help inform your business strategy. But in the end, if you can get it to drive your business strategy in terms of how you adapt it and adopt different things, then it creates greater opportunities for competitive advantage. And if you can get this to happen on a virtuous cycle, you've got the data network effects for an organization. And a great example of that will be most people will have a website and their customers come to that website to make purchases. What sometimes you don't know is where the customer will leave that website before making a purchase. What you want to try and do is identify at what point and for how long they potentially have come to your website for while not making a purchase so that you can clear that blockage for them going forward and therefore make the sale. So if you could do that type of thing and better understand how they work with you, you've got a greater chance of unlocking that value for yourselves.
Nice. And so I guess the summary there for me is, being very clear about your business strategy and understanding the key measures of success and how you're going to pull those levers and line up your data to support that. So Awesome. So next question, I guess, in relation to the thriller is, what are the elements of a digital strategy, and what are the importance of these elements?
Yeah, well, Kerry, there are generally three components. There is the business model, there are scenarios that you need to consider, and then there is the technology that helps you to get from your business strategy to the capture of the data to inform and advise you. And the reason why those 3 points are important is it is becoming more of a digital business. So therefore, you need to understand those things. And the other factor is that because it's digital, it moves at pace. And if you treat these three things as individual silos, no doubt you'll get a bottleneck somewhere. What you really need to do is look at all three of those things at the same time and how they interrelate so that you get this value a lot quicker, because it's all about the speed now. And the only way to do that is if you look at these three things and work them together to achieve that.
Mm. And look, I love the fact that, business model, and you talked about that, and business models are changing because they have to. We got pandemics, and we've got technology change, and we've got environmental change, and so really getting and unpacking, the business model and how that plays in is really important. So nicely done. And so in terms of question 3, in terms of before we close out, what is the importance of, you mentioned scenario planning for a digital strategy, and what are some of the examples of how this might be done?
Yeah, well, as we talked about, the digital scenarios are important because with the speed at which we're moving at, and we discussed, you fundamentally need to work out what's the runway that a business needs to have so that you're always thinking ahead just enough. You don't want to overdo it, but you just want to do it just enough. And some of the axes that you may consider when you're looking at scenarios are, one axis could be how often you want to release products and product offerings or services. And the other axis you may want to think about is what is the underlying technology and architecture that you're going to need to be able to support the speed at which you want to introduce those products. If you can identify what those current scenarios you face and what the future ones are that you want to face, then you can find out what the common thread is within those, and that sets your initial foundation for how you want to introduce your future runway of technology to achieve those product options that you may want to have into the future. And the other part of it is by identifying what's common across those scenarios, it gives you flexibility to pivot when you need to, versus going holers bowlers for a particular scenario and suddenly realizing you're going to have to revisit again. So that is the value of scenario planning.
Awesome. And I guess more important now, given, I guess some of those external factors that we've got.
Absolutely right.
Awesome. Well, Bernard, that's our 3 points in terms of the clearing out of the mystery and the thriller and the suspense of digital strategy. I'd like to thank you very, very much in terms of, I guess, just rounding out for everyone and just make sure I've got this right, is key takeaways are really a digital strategy is about the business model. It's about, particularly in relation to the change that's going on, it's about your future business scenarios to allow to cater for those. And it's about the underlying technology, the runway in which you can build to ensure that you can deliver on that. It's about the technology function that needs to transition from, it's the opportunity to transition from the back office order taking to the really front of house, getting engaged and involved and understanding really deeply about the business itself. And I guess the other element is that there's no one person has the answer, or no one organization. There are signals out there for direction, but no firm recipes themselves. So experimentation and boldness is required. Awesome. Cool. So look, that is it. Before we wrap up though, Bernard, we talked about the next session that we have on the 8th of October. We're going to release the video around the 8th of October on different components. Do you just want to talk about that? It's a 10-minute deep dive. What are we going to cover?
Yeah, we're going to try and get into a bit more of the digital strategy components, Kerry. So some of the aspects of business model, scenarios, what would be a framework for that, and if we're lucky, maybe a bit about the technology to better understand how we move from, legacy to a more digital stack, so to speak.
Awesome. Awesome. And if you're interested in that, then stay tuned on hashtag 4InsightsNZ. It's about unlocking the foresight and insight of people like Bernard to help accelerate your business in terms of its digital aspirations in bite-sized chunks, 10 minutes. All right, that's it, folks. I'd like to say ka kite anō, which means obviously farewell, goodbye, hope to see you again, and ke runga noa atu, which means onwards and upwards. Take care, folks. All the best.